Born with an unkind fate, left behind by her family, 2 decades later, the girl finds herself. Greetings to all, take pleasure in these soothing moments as you observe. The faint wails of an infant resonated within the expansive delivery room of a luxurious private hospital in New York. Isabella Montgomery, a noblewoman, reclined on the hospital bed, beads of sweat adorning her forehead, yet her eyes sparkled with eager anticipation. After years of anticipation, she had finally welcomed a child into the world. Richard Aldrich, her spouse, lingered next to her, his hands tucked into his pockets, exuding an air of detachment. For him, bringing another child into the world was simply an obligation to uphold the family legacy. As the nurse brought the baby nearer to Isabella, a smile graced her lips, but it quickly vanished, her expression hardening as her gaze fell upon the baby's face. "Oh my goodness!" Isabella let out a piercing scream, shoving the baby aside as though it were a creature from her worst nightmares. Maria, the young nurse, gasped in disbelief, almost letting the infant slip from her grasp. "What seems to be the matter, madam?" Maria inquired with a sense of urgency. "Observe its expression." "Oh dear, not this." Isabella grasped her head, her voice trembling with urgency. Richard advanced, a furrow forming on his brow as he looked intently at the infant. A prominent, rich crimson birthmark extended from the infant's forehead to her left cheek. It appeared to be an ominous sigil. Richard scoffed. "A child like this bearing the Aldrich name. This is a slight." Isabella quivered, clutching her husband's hand with fervent intensity. "Richard, we must let it go. A child like this threatens to tarnish our family's good name." Maria was taken aback. "But, esteemed sir or madam, this is indeed your daughter." Richard shot a fierce look at the nurse. "Your voice holds no weight here. Leave at once." Maria held the baby close, a sense of helplessness washing over her as Isabella and Richard spoke about the infant as if she were merely a topic of conversation, detached from their own family ties. Isabella trembled, surveying her surroundings, her voice barely holding together. "Richard, take whatever action you need, but I can't bear to witness it for another moment." Richard gestured with a flick of his wrist, summoning his loyal servant, Manuel, to carry the infant away. "Ensure it vanishes for all time." Maria inhaled sharply. "Sir, this is an offense. This is unacceptable for a child." Richard wore a sly grin. "Is it a crime? So allowing it to exist, bearing that visage and tarnishing my family's reputation, isn't considered a wrongdoing?" Emotion flooded Maria's eyes as she witnessed Manuel follow the command. The young nurse stood helplessly, her heart aching as the innocent baby was carried off into the frigid night, while the child's own parents remained indifferent. The winter in New York was fiercely frigid. Manuel, a man in the prime of his life who had dedicated many years to the Aldrich family, gently swaddled the baby in a time-worn woolen blanket and quietly departed from the grand estate. Reluctantly, he found himself compelled to follow through, for the commands of his master were not to be ignored. Manuel strolled down the lengthy avenues, striving to push aside the soft whimpers of the infant cradled in his arms. He understood that taking her to an orphanage was not an option, for Richard had decreed that her existence must remain a secret to all. As Manuel approached the forest's edge, just beyond the city's limits, he paused, uncertainty creeping in. The infant continued to wail, her small visage flushed from the chill. "Forgive me, God," Manuel whispered, setting the baby gently on a large rock before he turned away. Yet destiny proved to be kinder than expected. An elderly woman named Rose happened to stroll by. In a quaint wooden cottage nestled at the forest's edge, she ventured into town each day, peddling her fresh vegetables to sustain her humble life. Upon hearing the cries, she quivered and moved in closer. "Oh my goodness, it's a little one." Rose knelt, her weary eyes brimming with compassion as she gazed upon the forsaken infant. Who would commit such an act of cruelty? She tenderly cradled the baby, calming her with soft whispers. The infant appeared to sense the comforting presence, ceasing her cries as her eyes fluttered open, fixating on Rose with wonder. "Oh, you poor thing," Rose sighed. "No one is willing to nurture you. In that case, I shall proceed." Rose cradled the baby gently, enveloping her in the worn wool blanket to ensure warmth, before making her way back home with a slow, careful gait. Deep within the forest stood Rose's quaint cottage, unpretentious yet inviting. She kindled a warm glow in the fireplace and gently placed the baby on her bed. "You're safe now, my darling," she murmured softly. "I shall refer to you as Lucy. A name that signifies illumination, ensuring you will always be free from the shadows." Lucy shifted gently beneath the warm wool blanket, her small eyes gradually fluttering shut. The following morning, Rose took Lucy into the village in search of milk. Upon stepping into the quaint general store, she was greeted by the scrutinizing stares of a few villagers. A middle-aged woman, Mrs. Marilyn, wore a frown. "Rose, where did you find that little one?" "I discovered her amidst the trees." "Someone left her behind," Rose stated resolutely. "I will nurture her growth." The villagers started to whisper among themselves. An elderly gentleman shook his head in disapproval. "Perhaps she is a child marked by misfortune. Observe the distinctive birthmark on her face." Another woman, Mrs. Camille, murmured, "Dear God, could she be a harbinger of misfortune?" Rose embraced Lucy with a firm grip. "You're all being quite irrational. She is merely a young one." Yet, she found herself alone in her truth. A young man named Sergio crossed his arms and declared, "Rose, you'd better not keep her. She will bring chaos your way." Regardless of what they said, Rose remained indifferent to the chatter of the villagers. She was resolute in her mission to safeguard Lucy. At the Aldridge mansion, Isabella reclined in a chair, delicately sipping her tea, her expression serene and composed. Richard stepped into the room, his voice icy. "Is it finished?" "The task is complete." Isabella exhaled with a sense of relief. "At last, we are free from that unsightly object." Richard remained silent, a smirk playing on his lips. "It's time to begin our preparations for welcoming a son. The Aldridge family seeks a deserving successor." Isabella gave a slight nod. To them, Lucy was a mere figment of imagination, a ghost that had never truly been. Yet destiny always ensures that the unfeeling face consequences. The morning sun streamed through the tiny window of the humble wooden cottage. At the tender age of 6, Lucy found herself seated on the chilly ground, her small fingers delicately turning the pages of a time-worn book that Rose had cherished for countless years. The language was challenging to grasp, yet she persevered, for acquiring knowledge was the sole thing that allowed her to feel a sense of belonging in such a harsh reality. Rose beamed softly as she observed the child immersed in her reading. "You're incredibly intelligent, Lucy. There will come a time when you will no longer be underestimated." Lucy lifted her gaze, her eyes sparkling with excitement. "Grandma, if I put in a lot of effort, will others care for me?" The smile on Rose's lips wavered just a bit. She tenderly caressed the child's tousled hair. "Not everyone possesses kindness, my dear. Yet, with knowledge in your grasp, the ability to reshape your destiny lies within your reach." Lucy nodded, even if the meaning of her words eluded her grasp. For her, the world beyond had always felt uninviting. The village where Lucy resided was modest and impoverished, yet its inhabitants were steeped in bias. From the moment Rose welcomed her into her home, Lucy found herself at the center of whispers and isolation. Every time Rose brought Lucy to the market, they were met with scrutinizing stares and quiet murmurs that trailed them at every turn. "She is the girl with the birthmark on her face. She appears quite fearsome. She seems to carry a shadow of misfortune. Rose seems to have lost her mind. What compels her to insist on raising her?" With each occasion, Rose would grasp Lucy's hand firmly and guide her onward. Yet Lucy was aware of it all. She would bow her head, her delicate hands grasping the edge of her dress. A question lingered persistently in Lucy's heart. What have I done to deserve this animosity? What mistake did I make? At the age of 8, Lucy was filled with excitement at the thought of attending school, just like her peers. She had quietly observed them frolic on the dusty path to the village school, envisioning herself in their midst, seated at a desk, listening for her name to be announced during roll call. One morning, Lucy boldly grasped Rose's hand. "Grandma, may I attend school?" Rose paused, uncertainty flickering in her mind. "However, it's clear that your presence is not desired. However, I am already familiar with reading. I will dedicate myself to my studies, I assure you." The longing reflected in Lucy's gaze left Rose with no choice but to comply. At last, she brought Lucy to the village school, wishing the headmaster would offer her an opportunity. However, the moment they set foot on the school grounds, a cluster of parents swiftly obstructed the classroom entrance. A woman named Mrs. Marissa declared, "We will not allow a cursed child in our children's classroom." Indeed. A man, Mr. Albert, remarked that she would bring misfortune. Lucy, trembling with fear, sought refuge behind Rose, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Mr. Peter, the headmaster, let out a deep sigh of regret. "Rose, I truly regret to inform you that, unfortunately, there is nothing within my power to change this situation." Rose shook with fury. "She is merely a young one. Do you all lack a sense of morality?" Yet, there was a complete absence of regret. Ultimately, she found herself with no option but to bring Lucy home, her heart heavy as she witnessed the tears flowing down the young girl's cheeks. That evening, Lucy nestled into a cozy corner of the house. "Do you truly think I'm filled with such hatred, Grandma?" Rose grasped the little girl's hands firmly. "Absolutely not, my dear. You hold a value greater than anyone else in this village. They simply fail to recognize it." As Lucy faced rejection, Anthony, the ideal son of the Aldrich family, stood out as the village's prized gem. He was raised in opulence, constantly enveloped in the admiration of the townsfolk. Anthony possesses striking good looks. Just like a genuine Aldrich. One day, he will undoubtedly bring great honor to our village. From afar, Lucy remained still, absorbing the praise directed at Anthony. He possessed all that she lacked, the affection of his parents, the esteem of the villagers, a life unburdened by concerns. One fateful day, Lucy unexpectedly encountered Anthony amidst the bustling market. As she gazed at him with curiosity, Anthony responded with a disdainful smirk. "May I inquire about your identity?" Lucy hesitated, her words faltering. My name is Lucy." Anthony released a derisive chuckle. "I'm not familiar with you." "Oh, hold on, you're that infamous kid everyone seems to be buzzing about, right?" Lucy bowed her head, a deep sorrow weighing on her heart. Anthony erupted in laughter and glanced over at his friends. "Check this out, everyone. This is the girl shrouded in fear and mystery." The other children erupted into fits of laughter. One of them, James, mocked her. "Lucy. Unattractive Lucy. You are the harbinger of misfortune for the entire community." As Lucy sprinted towards home, tears cascaded down her cheeks. Even in the face of the villagers' dismissal, Lucy remained steadfast in her determination. She immersed herself in literature, absorbing every letter that Rose imparted to her. Rose frequently offered her words of comfort. Seeking validation from unkind individuals is unnecessary. Your fate is not determined by them. Yet, despite Lucy's relentless efforts, the disdain of the village always seemed to follow her. Each time she ventured outdoors, she faced disdainful glances and harsh murmurs. And then, the most profound sorrow of her existence descended upon her. The winters in the mountainous regions of the Americas were intensely frigid. The biting winds sliced through skin and infiltrated the wooden seams of the modest home where Rose and Lucy resided. This winter was more brutal than any before. Rose had aged and become delicate. Her cough became more frequent, and her nights were filled with unrest. Nevertheless, she compelled herself to rise each morning, tending to Lucy with the scant resources at her disposal. Lucy observed the transformations within her. Rose's steps had grown more deliberate, her hands lacking the steadiness they once possessed. One evening, as Rose held Lucy close to help her drift off, the little girl paused and inquired, "Grandma, are you all right?" Rose softly caressed Lucy's hair. "I am well, my dear. The passage of time leaves me feeling somewhat weary." However, Lucy remained unconvinced by her words. She had witnessed the crimson stain that Rose expelled into her tattered handkerchief. She noticed her grandmother shiver with each step she took, in urgent pursuit of employment. One morning, Lucy made the bold choice to step out of her home in search of employment. At just 11 years old, she felt a profound sense of responsibility to take action for Rose. She traversed the village, rapping on doors and pleading for employment, any employment. Yet, all she garnered in response were icy glances and harsh remarks. Mrs. Marissa folded her arms and raised her chin defiantly. "Are you interested in working at my home?" "Absolutely not. I refuse to allow misfortune to cross my threshold." Mr. Albert gently shook his head, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "Do you believe that anyone would employ a child burdened by a curse like you? Go away." Lucy bit her lip, stifling the tears that threatened to spill. She pressed on to the bakery, the inn, the vegetable stall, yet no one offered her an opportunity. As she trudged home, her weary feet shuffling along, her hands devoid of anything, a deep sense of despair enveloped her heart. Rose's strength dwindled with each passing day. The relentless cough rendered her incapable of eating properly. Her gaze grew heavier, and her complexion faded to a ghostly hue. Lucy knelt beside her, cradling her icy hands. "Grandma, it's important for you to visit a doctor." Rose managed a smile as she gently cupped Lucy's cheek. "Everything is okay, my dear. With you by my side, everything else fades away." However, Lucy was unconvinced by that notion. She hurried to Mrs. Camille's residence, a home belonging to one of the more affluent villagers. "Could I please borrow some money to cover my grandmother's treatment? I will strive to repay you." Yet Mrs. Camille merely dismissed it with a scoff. "Do you really believe I'd lend a hand to someone like you? Leave immediately." Lucy sprinted forward, her heart racing as she sought assistance. She visited the village doctor, yet he merely shook his head. "This condition necessitates costly medication. I am unable to assist without compensation." Each door closed with a resounding finality, leaving her standing alone. That night, the wind wailed through the walls, bringing with it a piercing cold. Lucy sat beside Rose, gripping her grandmother's hand with fervor, striving to keep her consciousness alive. "Grandma, please stay awake. You must remain by my side." Rose gradually lifted her eyelids, her expression soft yet fatigued. "Lucy, you are the brightest spark in my existence." Lucy's face was wet with tears. "I wish for that light to remain shining. Grandma, I really need you to stay with me." Yet Rose merely smiled, her eyes slowly drifting shut. Her breaths diminished, fading into silence. Lucy stood still. With a quivering hand, she extended her fingers to caress Rose's face. "Dear Grandma. Dear Grandma." All warmth had vanished. Silence reigns. Lucy collapsed into tears, embracing her grandmother's still form in a wave of sorrow. The following morning, the news of Rose's passing swept rapidly through the village. Yet, rather than grieving, the villagers reveled in their malicious chatter. Mr. Albert gave a nonchalant shrug. "She ought to have let that girl go a long time ago. Holding on to her only led to chaos." Mrs. Marissa gave a slight nod. "With her passing, what will happen to that child?" Another villager uttered with a chill in their voice. "Eliminate her presence. Who would choose to reside close to a girl marked by misfortune?" Lucy remained by Rose's side, her eyes puffy and crimson, her heart in pieces. Suddenly, a silhouette emerged at the entrance. Anthony Aldrich. He remained there, brimming with arrogance and contempt. So, the old woman has finally passed away, has she? Lucy gazed up at him, her eyes glistening with unshed tears. Refrain from speaking about her in that manner. Anthony wore a sly grin. What's stopping us? I'm simply expressing the facts. With no one around to shield you, what will your strategy be for survival? Lucy tightened her fists, her nails pressing into her palms. I will thrive independently. I have no use for anyone's sympathy. Anthony gave a slight shrug. Wishing you the best of luck. However, don't anticipate any assistance from the residents of this village. He pivoted and strode off, abandoning Lucy to her sea of sorrow. In the absence of Rose, with no one to shield her, Lucy faded into a mere specter within the village. She received no food from anyone. She found herself without a refuge. She was forced to search for remnants of abandoned bread, sipping frigid water from the stream merely to stay alive. With each day that went by, Lucy sensed herself becoming an empty vessel. Yet within her tiny heart, a quiet flame of resentment flickered. That winter stretched on, a seemingly endless expanse of solitude for Lucy. In the absence of Rose, she transformed into a source of unwanted weight for the village. Once, Rose had served as a tether for the villagers, a reason to temper their harshness. Now, however, there was nothing to keep their cruelty in check. Throughout the day, she roamed the streets, yearning for a hint of compassion and a morsel of bread to ease her hunger. Yet, with each step she took, every door closed firmly in her wake. Leave now. Your presence is not needed here. You're a harbinger of misfortune, Lucy. This village has no desire for your presence. As darkness fell, she nestled into a forgotten nook of the marketplace, wrapping her delicate legs around herself in a desperate attempt to ward off the chill. The wind wailed, cutting through her ragged garments. Her hollow belly churned with hunger, yet all she could do was clench her jaw and persevere. One day, as Lucy trudged through the village, she unexpectedly came across a group of teenage boys congregated in the town square. At the heart of the gathering stood Anthony Aldridge. He had grown taller, now a 16-year-old with a strikingly handsome appearance, tall, confident, and brimming with pride. Anthony stood as the beacon of the Aldridge family, a source of pride for the whole village. He donned a lengthy, luxurious coat and gleaming leather boots, standing in stark contrast to Lucy's tattered, unkempt look. As Lucy began to walk away, Anthony's gaze had already locked onto her. "Hey, look who we have here," he exclaimed, his tone laced with sarcasm. "The peculiar creature of our village." The boys erupted in laughter. One of them, Raphael, wore a sly grin. Goodness, I assumed she would have perished from hunger by this point. Lucy tightened her fists, remaining silent, simply attempting to distance herself. Yet, Anthony had more to say. He advanced, obstructing her way. "Where do you believe you're headed? Shouldn't you appreciate the fact that we've allowed you to survive this long?" Lucy glanced upward, her gaze aflame with unspoken rage. "Your sympathy is unnecessary." Anthony let out a derisive laugh. "Sympathy? That's absurd. I find it quite entertaining to observe a sewer rat in its struggle." A chorus of laughter erupted from the group of teenagers. One of them, Daniel, disdainfully spat on the ground. "Lucy, I've come up with an exciting concept. Why not just vanish completely? In that manner, we would all experience a significant improvement in our well-being." With determination, Lucy clenched her jaw and attempted to maneuver around Anthony. Yet, just as she pressed ahead, a coarse hand tugged at the worn scarf that encircled her. With a swift motion, Anthony seized the scarf, lifting it triumphantly above his head. "Take a look at this. This is everything she possesses to stay warm. Would you like it returned, Lucy?" Lucy lunged ahead, reaching out to seize it, but Anthony was faster. With a disdainful smirk, he flung the scarf into the muck. "Feel free to grab it. Go ahead and grab it if it's that important to you." Lucy gazed at the scarf, now tarnished with dirt, before raising her eyes to meet Anthony's. A palpable tension filled the air. But instead of bowing her head, Lucy held it high. "I would prefer to face the cold embrace of death than follow your commands." Anthony lifted an eyebrow in curiosity. He was taken aback by her unexpected resistance. For a fleeting instant, their gazes locked, one brimming with hubris, the other radiating resistance. Anthony was not fond of that. His smirk contorted into a malevolent expression, and in an instant, he pushed Lucy with force. She fell to the earth, her knees grazing the jagged stones, resulting in crimson streaks. "Next time, understand your position, beast," Anthony stated with icy detachment before walking away. As Anthony made his way back to the Aldridge mansion, the sun was dipping below the horizon. He entered the magnificent living room, where his mother, Isabella, was engrossed in a book. "Mother, did you come across anything intriguing today?" Anthony scoffed. "That girl, Lucy, continues to live on. She's like an unyielding survivor, persisting against all odds." Isabella recoiled, placing her book aside. "Excuse me?" "She remains present." Anthony gave a slight shrug. "Absolutely. She continues to roam the village aimlessly, much like a lost dog. Today, I caught a glimpse of her." Isabella's expression grew somber. "Her presence is unacceptable. She brings shame upon our family." Her grip on the teacup grew firm, her voice quivering with disdain. "Anthony, action is required on your part. I have no desire to encounter her again." Anthony wore a sly grin. "Rest easy, dear mother. I will handle it." From that day forward, Anthony no longer merely ridiculed Lucy. He wielded his family's influence to guarantee that the whole village united in their animosity towards her. She was unceremoniously ejected by the innkeeper. She found herself without any job offers. She found herself unable to sell her food. The doors that were once slightly open were now forcefully closed before her. Lucy felt an increasing pang of hunger and a chill creeping in. She had to rummage through the marketplace, gathering leftover bits of bread. As she bent low to retrieve a discarded piece of bread, a derisive voice echoed from behind her. Anthony lingered in the midst of his companions. "Observe that. She has truly transformed into a creature of the shadows." The gathering burst into fits of laughter. Lucy tightened her fists, her heart ablaze with fury. Yet, she understood that action was not an option at this moment. She had to find her inner strength. She had to endure. For the very first time, Lucy contemplated the idea of departure. The sky above New York hung in a somber gray, laden with the impending threat of rain. Lucy strolled down the uneven dirt path, her bare feet marked by the jagged stones beneath her. She had become familiar with the persistent hunger, the disdainful glances, the mocking laughter. Yet today, an unusual sensation lingered in the air. The villagers assembled outside Beatrice's bakery, their voices low and filled with anticipation. As Lucy drew near, an abrupt hush enveloped the group, their stares piercing her with unmistakable animosity. Lucy sensed that something was amiss. Out of nowhere, a tall figure emerged from the throng, Thomas, the proprietor of the village's sole inn. "Lucy," he uttered with a chill in his voice. "Your presence here is no longer permitted." Lucy stood still, her body rigid. "Could you repeat that, please?" Thomas folded his arms, casting a scornful gaze in her direction. "I've been given directives from a significant figure. Sleeping in the market is no longer permitted, and wandering around the village is off limits as well. It would be wise for you to vanish." Lucy tightened her grip, her fists balling up in determination. "Who are the orders from?" Thomas wore a sly grin. "Is that really a question that needs to be posed? It's clear that Anthony is the one in charge around here." A wave of fury surged within Lucy's chest. "Anthony does not hold the title of king in this village." Thomas let out a derisive laugh. "No, but the Aldridge family instills fear in everyone. You're nothing but a worthless wanderer, Lucy." If you wish to avoid being forcibly removed, it's advisable to depart voluntarily. The villagers started to whisper to one another. Some expressed their agreement with a nod, while others remained silent, hesitant to voice their support for Lucy. Lucy stepped back, her heart racing. I shall remain right here. I have not committed any wrongdoing. Out of nowhere, Mrs. Marissa interjected, her tone laced with venom. You are the bane of this village. Your presence seems to cast a shadow over us all. Should you remain in this place, calamity is bound to ensue. Harmony resonated among the assembly. Lucy sensed that the earth below her had disintegrated. She found herself without a destination. In a state of urgency, Lucy hurried to Mrs. Camille's residence, the woman who had once shared a deep bond with Rose. She pounded on the door, her voice quaking with urgency. Madame Camille. Kindly. I find myself without any other options. Could you assist me? After a prolonged pause, the door slowly creaked open. Yet, rather than the comforting, recognizable look she had anticipated, Lucy encountered a pair of frigid, indifferent eyes. Camille folded her arms, her face a mask of mystery. Lucy, it's important for you to realize that your presence is not welcomed by anyone. Tears brimmed in Lucy's eyes. However, you were a friend of Grandma Rose. Camille let out a deep sigh. Indeed, she is no longer here. I cannot afford to assist you. I regret to inform you that it is time for you to go. The door crashed closed right in front of Lucy. She remained in place, tears cascading down her face. One by one, she visited each home in the village. Yet the response remained a consistent chill of unyielding gazes, apathetic looks, and doors closing firmly. In that moment, Lucy came to a realization. She found herself completely isolated. 3 days went by. Lucy felt an overwhelming hunger that made each step a challenge. Her frail, quaking legs brought her to the marketplace, where she gazed at the abandoned scraps of bread strewn along the roadside. After a brief pause, she bent down to retrieve a stale piece and lifted it to her lips. Out of nowhere, a voice mocked her from behind. Hey, everyone! The tiny creature is feasting on refuse. Lucy stood still, her body rigid. Before her loomed Anthony Aldridge, flanked by his circle of companions. Daniel erupted in laughter. Wow, I've never encountered someone quite like this before. Anthony wore a sly grin, clearly amused by the situation. She truly embodies the essence of a sewer rat. Not only is she under a dark spell, but now she finds herself in the depths of despair as a beggar. Lucy experienced a flush of humiliation and fury wash over her. She gripped the piece of bread tightly in her hand, determined not to discard it. Regardless of the ridicule she faced, her will to endure remained unshaken. Anthony leaned in, lowering himself to speak in a hushed tone. It's important for you to grasp this, Lucy. This is not your place. Your worth is negligible. Lucy raised her eyes, a fierce fire of determination igniting within them. Someday, I will show you that you're mistaken. Anthony let out a soft laugh. Ah! I'll be here, anticipating the arrival of that day. He averted his gaze, the sound of his friends' laughter trailing behind him as they walked in his wake. Lucy tightened her grip, a silent promise forming within her that one day, they would all face the consequences of their actions. She stumbled to the edge of the marketplace and huddled into a tight ball. She was utterly drained, unable to shed another tear. The heavens grew dim, and before long, the rain started to descend. Chilling raindrops assaulted her delicate form, causing her to tremble uncontrollably. In the shadows, Lucy's mind wandered to Rose. She recalled the comforting sound of her grandmother's voice, the tender way she would caress her hair as night fell. Perseverance is key, Lucy. Lucy shut her eyes, fighting against the overwhelming sense of hopelessness. She needed to endure. Regardless of the circumstances, she refused to allow them to witness her unravel. She raised her gaze and fixed her eyes on the distant horizon. For the very first time, she permitted herself to entertain a thought she had never before summoned the courage to explore. Departing from this location. The days that followed only confirmed that the ordeal was far from finished. The villagers' disdain for her was insufficient. Anthony and his crew now regarded her as their preferred source of amusement. Throughout the day, as she strolled through the village, the locals would whistle, point, and throw stones while shouting insults. Lucy. Creatures of nightmares have no place in our world. Do you not feel any sense of embarrassment about continuing to exist? Under the cover of darkness, Anthony and his companions would quietly make their way to the marketplace, where she lay in slumber. They employed charcoal to inscribe venomous messages upon the walls. Accursed offspring. Grandma Rose passed away because of you. Leave this village immediately. Each dawn, Lucy greeted the day with those words echoing in her mind. Every time, it was as if a blade was cutting through her soul. Yet she found herself devoid of any tears to shed. One morning, as Lucy emerged from her resting place, she observed that Beatrice's bakery had been defaced with dark charcoal. The creature has made contact with this shop. Stay away if you seek to avoid misfortune. A throng had assembled outside the store, voices escalating in fervent debate. Beatrice seethed with anger, her fingers shaking as she pointed at Lucy. You were the one behind this, weren't you? Lucy stood still. Negative. I didn't take any action. Yet, she found herself alone in her truth. Thomas let out a derisive laugh. Naturally, it was her. The accursed offspring. She aims to pull us all into the depths of despair alongside her. A voice, aged and resonant, echoed through the air. We must expel her from the village. Indeed, another voice called out. She shouldn't be allowed to remain here. Lucy took a step back, her heart racing. Kindly. I have not committed any wrongdoing. Yet the throng had abandoned all sense. A man unexpectedly hurled a shattered brick in her direction. The sharp edge grazed her arm, resulting in a profound gash. Crimson liquid pooled on the earth, a stark contrast to the brown soil beneath. Lucy inhaled sharply, her entire being quaking with agony and terror. Yet, within her core, a fracture occurred. A fire of fury blazed more intensely than ever before. Lucy could no longer tolerate this situation. She raised her chin, her gaze aflame with resolve. Why do you all dislike me so intensely? In an instant, the audience hushed. With a tremor in her legs, Lucy advanced, battling the intense agony coursing through her frame. I have never caused harm to anyone. I have always acted with integrity. However, what about you? You regard me as if I'm some kind of beast. A handful of individuals shifted in their seats, clearly uneasy. However, Anthony chose not to. With a sly grin, he advanced confidently. Do you believe you can confront us? Lucy locked eyes with him, her tone resolute. Someday, I shall depart from this location. And I shall transform into an individual you will never again have the audacity to underestimate. Anthony's smirk wavered for the briefest moment. Are you implying a threat towards us? Lucy remained silent. She pivoted and dashed away from the throng. Within the walls of the Aldridge mansion, Isabella's rage erupted. She hurled her teacup to the floor, the porcelain splintering into countless shards. Anthony, are you really saying that she's still around? Anthony reclined in his chair, arms folded across his chest. Mother, I have taken every measure to ensure she is unwelcome in this village. She's hanging by a thread. Isabella tightened her jaw. I want her to thrive, not just survive. I wish for her to vanish entirely. Anthony wore a sly grin. Rest easy, mother. Her time is running out. Isabella let out a sharp breath, yet the animosity in her gaze lingered. I want everything tied up neatly. I have no desire to encounter her again. Anthony gave a slight nod. Got it, mother. Unbeknownst to him, Lucy was plotting something entirely different. Under the cover of darkness, Lucy gathered her sparse belongings. A frayed scarf. An old slice of bread. A tiny blade that Rose had once gifted her. She felt an overwhelming urge to leave this place behind. If she were to do so, it would lead to her demise. She was compelled to depart. But where might that be? Lucy gazed upward at the expansive, twinkling heavens and inhaled deeply. Rose had once shared with her, New York is a vast expanse, brimming with possibilities for those who persist relentlessly. New York City. Perhaps that was the destination she sought. Lucy tightened her grip, her fists balling up in determination. I refuse to allow them to ruin my existence. Before the first light of dawn, Lucy departed from the village that had haunted her dreams. She strode ahead, resolute and unyielding, her gaze fixed firmly on the path ahead. Lucy made her way through the shadows, her bare feet wounded by the jagged stones on the rough trail that stretched away from the village. She was broke. Only a stale piece of bread, hidden away in her tattered coat, served as her meager sustenance. The icy night breeze pierced her skin, yet she pressed on undeterred. She found herself with nothing remaining to risk. All that existed in that village was a relentless cycle of suffering. Every step was infused with her deep-seated animosity and unwavering resolve. She would never set foot in that place again. The fringes of New York lay shrouded in darkness, an unsettling quiet enveloping the scene. Majestic trees stood tall above, their thick canopies obscuring much of the sky. Faint beams of moonlight trickled through the leaves, casting a delicate glow on the narrow path that Lucy navigated with care. Her stomach churned with a fierce ache of hunger, yet she pressed on without hesitation. Each tiny sound in the forest startled her. I must persist. I am unable to cease. She urged herself on, compelling her feet to quicken their pace. Out of nowhere, a rustling noise broke the silence from behind her. Lucy stood still, her heart racing uncontrollably. She pivoted, yet all that greeted her was an abyss of shadows. Is someone there? She asked, her voice quivering. No response. Then, another sound of footsteps. With a sudden intake of breath, Lucy bolted forward, her feet pounding against the ground. She was unaware of the distance she covered, only that there was no way to halt her pace. As she fell to the ground in a secluded clearing, her heart raced with an intensity that was almost painful. Her breaths came in uneven, desperate bursts. Suddenly, a voice pierced the darkness. Where are you off to in such a rush, Lucy? Lucy's heart sank. She pivoted gradually, her gaze landing on Anthony, who stood there with Daniel and Raphael by his side. All three of them wore sly grins, their eyes sparkling with wicked delight. Lucy stepped back, her mind racing. What brings you here? Anthony gave a nonchalant shrug. We learned you were departing the village, so we figured, why not give you a proper send-off? Daniel burst into a hearty laugh. Or perhaps hold on to you for a while longer. Ultimately, you are our finest source of enjoyment. Fear gripped Lucy's heart. Yet she would not allow it to be revealed. Her grip on the small knife concealed behind her back grew firmer. Get lost, Anthony, she said, her voice sharp and unyielding. Anthony chuckled. Ah. Are you instructing me now? He advanced, taking hold of Lucy's chin and applying pressure. Did you genuinely believe you could evade my grasp? With a fierce determination, Lucy clenched her teeth and tore herself away from his hold. I have grown beyond the timid girl I once was. Anthony's gaze deepened into shadow. Ah. Is that really the case? Thwack. His hands collided with her face forcefully. Lucy collapsed onto the earth, her cheek aflame with agony. Yet, she held back her tears. She gazed at Anthony, her eyes aflame with animosity. Anthony knelt, seizing the knife from her grasp and raising it high. What were your plans for this? End my existence? He chuckled and flung the knife away. Yet Lucy found no necessity for the knife in her battle. With a swift motion, she scooped up a clump of muddy earth and hurled it directly at Anthony's face. "Attic," he shouted, stumbling back and rubbing his face. With determination, Lucy took advantage of the opportunity and delivered a powerful kick to his leg. Anthony stumbled and fell hard to the ground. Daniel and Raphael stood motionless, taken aback. Lucy took action without hesitation. She pivoted and dashed into the woods. Behind her, Anthony bellowed, "Seize her!" The echo of footsteps reverberated behind her. Lucy sensed her heart pounding fiercely within her chest. She had to evade their grasp. She needed to break free. In the distance, the trees began to recede, unveiling a soft shimmer of a road. Lucy propelled herself forward, pouring every ounce of her remaining strength into the run. She emerged from the forest, stumbling onto the gravel road with a sudden rush. As she raised her gaze, a carriage thundered toward her with alarming speed. The driver, an elderly man with silver hair, pulled on the reins, halting the horses just in the nick of time. "Hey you! What brings you out here at this time of night?" he insisted. Lucy inhaled sharply, her entire body trembling. "I beg you, whisk me away from this place." Arnold's eyes lingered on her battered visage, the grime that clung to her skin, and the injuries that marred her feet. His expression grew steely. "Who caused this to happen to you?" Lucy was unable to respond. From the shadows of the trees, Anthony and his crew erupted into view. Arnold grasped the situation right away. He extended his hand. "Hurry up and get inside." Lucy acted without a moment's pause. With a swift motion, she took Arnold's hand and hurried into the carriage. "They are pursuing me. Kindly, take your leave." With a sharp crack of the reins, Arnold urged the horses into a wild gallop. The carriage sped away into the darkness of the night. Lucy glanced back one final time, her gaze meeting Anthony's, who lingered in the center of the road, his expression contorted with fury. He called out to her, but Lucy could no longer catch his words. She had vanished. She would never set foot in that village again. The carriage glided through the darkness, transporting Lucy toward a future shrouded in mystery. As the first light of dawn crept in, Lucy stirred and found herself in an entirely unfamiliar realm. New York City. A sprawling, bustling environment, brimming with possibilities. She inhaled deeply. She had transformed from the frail, scorned child. She would begin anew. One day, she would ensure that each person who had belittled her would come to deeply regret their actions. Lucy alighted from Arnold's carriage just as the initial beams of sunlight began to unfurl across the horizon. Before her lay the vibrant expanse of New York, with its charming cobblestone streets, bustling cafes, and towering buildings that soared higher than anything she had ever encountered. Her heart raced, a whirlwind of exhilaration and trepidation coursing through her veins. "Where are you headed now?" Arnold inquired, his tone laced with worry. Lucy gave a slight shake of her head. "I'm uncertain, yet I will discover a path to endure." Arnold let out a deep breath, then retrieved several coins and placed them gently into her palm. "Here you go, girl. In New York, survival is a fleeting endeavor without financial resources." Lucy gazed at the cash in her hand, her eyes brimming with emotion. For the first time, someone had offered her assistance without a hint of condescension. "Thank you very much. This will stay with me forever." With a gentle smile, Arnold encouraged his horses to move on, leaving Lucy solitary amidst the sprawling cityscape. She meandered through unknown avenues, seeking refuge. She understood the importance of not squandering the funds Arnold had entrusted to her. As she walked by the bakeries, the aroma of freshly baked bread curled around her, twisting her stomach in a painful knot of hunger. However, she found it impossible to allocate all her resources to a single meal. At last, Lucy arrived in a struggling neighborhood, home to the city's most disadvantaged inhabitants. She took a small, shadowy nook in a crowded boarding house run by an elderly lady named Stella, a stern yet not wholly unkind figure. The elderly woman squinted at Lucy with suspicion. "Do you have any cash, kid?" Lucy offered her a handful of coins. "All I require is a spot to rest my head." Stella let out a frustrated sigh but accepted the money. "All right. However, I do not offer handouts. To remain, effort is essential." Lucy responded with a quick nod. "I am willing to do whatever it takes." The following day, Lucy entered a school for underprivileged children, a haven where those without families or financial means still had an opportunity to gain knowledge. She encountered the head teacher, Mr. Matthew, a man in his middle years, sporting a robust beard and an intense stare. "I want to study here," Lucy declared with conviction. Matthew scrutinized her from head to toe. "Are you able to cover your tuition costs?" Lucy gently shook her head, a subtle gesture that spoke volumes. "However, I am capable of working. I'll take care of the floors, polish the classrooms, whatever it takes. Simply grant me an opportunity." Matthew remained quiet for an extended pause, then gave a nod. "All right. If you're ready to put in the effort, I'll allow you to learn." After a long time, Lucy found herself smiling. From that moment, Lucy's morning started long before the sun rose. She rose with the dawn to tidy the classrooms, polish the floors, and tackle every task that others shied away from. As the other students entered the room, she neatly tucked away her cleaning rags and settled into a desk, blending in like any other student. She consumed each word in her books with fervor. She tackled each math problem with unwavering resolve. Regardless of her fatigue, she persisted unwaveringly. Each time she reflected on her past, the shame, the deprivation, the pain, she brought herself back to the present. "I am unable to cease. I must continue to progress." 3 years went by. Lucy didn't merely finish her education, she outshone everyone. She read with remarkable speed, tackled math problems with ease, and crafted essays with a precision that surpassed all her classmates. Even Mr. Matthew had to recognize her exceptional talent. One day, he summoned her to his office and set a letter before her. He mentioned that this is a scholarship to one of the most esteemed medical universities in New York. "I have put in a good word for you." Lucy's eyes grew large with surprise. "Excuse me?" Matthew beamed with joy. "Your skills are impressive. A brighter future awaits you." Lucy clutched the letter tightly, and after so many years, tears streamed down her cheeks. Once, she was a forsaken child, reviled, deprived, driven to the edge of existence. Yet, at this moment, she found herself with an opportunity to reshape her destiny. As Lucy departed from Stella's boarding house, the elderly woman merely folded her arms and let out a frustrated sigh. "You believe you've reached a new level of significance now." Lucy merely smiled. "I don't stand out. I simply persisted." Stella observed her intently for a brief moment, then offered a subtle nod. "Show me what you've got, kid." With a humble nod, Lucy expressed her thanks and turned to leave. She had transformed into a stronger version of herself, leaving the old Lucy behind. She was moving toward a future she had once deemed unattainable. As Lucy made her way to medical school, she paused in front of a shop window, where a sizable mirror captured her reflection. She gazed at her reflection. She had shed the identity of the forsaken child lost among the trees. She had shed the label of the outcast that the villagers once scorned. At that moment, she stood as a hopeful medical student, her future radiating with potential. Yet, after all this time, Lucy was aware that there was an indelible memory she could never erase. The individuals who had caused her pain. The ones who attempted to shatter her resolve. Before long, they would face the consequences. And she would hold the power to determine their destiny. Years had slipped away since Lucy departed from that accursed village. New York transformed her existence in ways she never imagined. From a destitute, Forsaken child, Lucy ascended to become the foremost reconstructive surgeon in the Americas. She had risen above their scrutiny. She had shed the label of the cursed child. She was an accomplished and intelligent individual, radiating excellence among the upper echelons of society. Yet, regardless of the distance she had traveled, there was one memory that would forever remain etched in Lucy's mind. The individuals who had walked over her. And destiny had determined it was time for them to confront her once more. One evening, Lucy found herself at the Golden Hands ceremony, a gathering celebrating the extraordinary achievements of doctors in the field of medicine. The host enthusiastically declared, "We are honored to introduce Dr. Lucy Aldrich, a prominent figure in the field of reconstructive surgery across the Americas." The crowd burst into enthusiastic applause. Lucy ascended the stage, adorned in an exquisite gown, her flowing hair meticulously arranged in an elegant updo. She wore a confident smile, yet beneath the surface, she was aware. In a distant place, individuals were glued to their screens, struggling to comprehend what they were witnessing. In the quaint village, a cozy cafe had its television set to the live event. The villagers assembled, observing nonchalantly, oblivious to the identity of the figure they were about to encounter. Suddenly, Lucy emerged on the screen. An aged woman inhaled sharply. Am I imagining things?" Mrs. Marissa was taken aback. "Absolutely not. That is the girl who is cursed." The cafe was enveloped in an unsettling stillness. The reality before them was too astonishing to accept. However, what of Richard, Isabella, and Anthony Aldrich? With Lucy's departure, the Aldrich family had lost its status as the most influential in the region. Richard found himself in a dire financial situation as a result of misguided business choices. Isabella had shed her status as a once revered noblewoman. Now, she existed merely as a bitter old woman, lost in the illusions of her former glory. And Anthony, once the golden boy, once the arrogant heir, was now reduced to nothing. He endured a rare skin condition, one that had marred his once flawless face with scars. He had sought out numerous physicians, yet none could provide him with a remedy. And tonight, as he observed Lucy illuminated by the spotlight, a realization dawned upon him. Destiny had commenced its retribution. The following morning, Anthony made his way to Lucy's hospital. He donned a tattered, time-worn suit, his formerly dignified visage now etched with despair. He made his way to the receptionist, his voice quivering with uncertainty. "I would like to schedule an appointment with Dr. Lucy Aldrich." The nurse glanced up, her brow furrowed. "Do you have a scheduled meeting?" "Negative." "However, convey it to her. I am her sibling." The nurse paused for a moment, then swiftly conveyed the message. Moments later, Lucy made her entrance. She stood there in her immaculate white coat, exuding strength and command. Anthony hardly recognized her. Lucy assessed him thoroughly, her expression steady yet frigid. "What is it that you desire?" Her voice held a steady calm, yet Anthony sensed the unspoken barrier that separated them. He gulped, his voice dropping to a whisper. "Lucy. Kindly. Could you assist me?" Lucy arched an eyebrow. "What makes it worthwhile for me to assist you?" Anthony paused, uncertainty flickering in his mind. "You are an exceptional reconstructive surgeon. Rescue me." Lucy held her silence for what felt like an eternity. Then, she moved in closer, locking her gaze with his. "Do you recall what you did to me, Anthony?" He averted his eyes, filled with shame. Lucy's voice became more cutting. "You ridiculed me. Go ahead, I'm ready. They drove me from the village as if I were nothing more than a stray dog. You said I wasn't worthy of existence." Anthony's fists tightened, his entire body quaking with intensity. "Me. Indeed, you are correct. I acknowledge my mistake. However, I kindly ask that you refrain from treating me as I once treated you." Lucy fixed her gaze on him. For a fleeting instant, Anthony entertained the notion that she might decline. However, Lucy gave a slight nod. Her voice carried a subtle strength, soft yet resolute. Some wounds remain forever unhealed, Anthony. However, I refuse to transform into the person you once were. Anthony's eyes grew wide with disbelief. Lucy pressed on. I shall take care of you. Not due to any forgiveness on my part, but because I will not allow myself to transform into the monster that you and your mother were. Anthony was in disbelief at the words that reached his ears. Despite everything he had done, Lucy remained ready to offer her assistance. He sank to his knees before her, tears cascading down his cheeks. Thank you very much. Thanks, Lucy. Yet Lucy merely turned and strolled away. To her, Anthony was merely another case to manage. Just that, and nothing beyond. The operation went well. Anthony had found his healing, yet the weight of his past made it impossible for him to meet Lucy's gaze once more. Regarding Richard and Isabella, those who had once rejected her very being, they could no longer claim the title of her parents. As Lucy emerged from the hospital, she inhaled deeply. The sky over New York was a brilliant shade of blue, unmarred by clouds. She emerged victorious. Not through the pursuit of vengeance, but by elevating herself to such heights that those who once oppressed her could never touch her again. She was no longer bound by the chains of her past. At last, Lucy had broken free. Lucy had finished the surgery. She rescued Anthony, not from a sense of familial affection, but to demonstrate that she was entirely different from them. As Anthony sank to his knees, pleading for forgiveness, tears of regret cascading down his cheeks, Lucy felt an indifference wash over her. She had transformed into a figure of strength, no longer the frail, desperate girl who once begged for compassion. She was Lucy Aldrich, the leading reconstructive surgeon in the Americas. A woman who commanded respect from all who crossed her path. The tale of Lucy traveled far and wide. Not only on television, but reaching all the way back to the village that once rejected her. The very individuals who had once hurled insults at her, banishing her as if she were an unwanted stray, now found themselves paralyzed in the face of reality. Mrs. Marissa, the woman who once cried out for Lucy's exile, trembled as she gazed at the television screen. We were far too harsh with her, she murmured. Mr. Albert, the man who had once hurled a brick in her direction, bowed his head. Had I been aware, I would have refrained from taking that action. Yet, they all understood that the moment had passed. Lucy had no use for their remorse. She would never set foot in that place again. In the interim, Richard Aldrich, who was once esteemed as a nobleman, had descended into a state of disgrace. He had squandered nearly everything, his riches, his sway, his authority, all due to his own shortcomings. Yet, the deepest anguish for him lay in the realization that the daughter he had once scorned, cast aside as if she were worthless, had blossomed into a brilliant star while he slipped into obscurity. Isabella found herself in no improved situation. She lingered in solitude within the frigid, desolate Aldrich mansion, where the echoes of lavish soirees and the presence of adoring admirers had faded into memory. Upon catching sight of Lucy on television, a wave of horror washed over her, filling her eyes with dread. Negative. This simply cannot be true. Her existence was never meant to be. Yet, regardless of her fervent denials, the reality persisted. Lucy had not merely endured, she had ascended beyond what anyone could have envisioned. Upon leaving the hospital, Anthony made his way back to the mansion. He had shed the arrogance of his youth. Each time he gazed into the mirror, despite the healing of his face, the profound humiliation etched into his soul remained palpable. He had once believed Lucy was insignificant. Yet, in this moment, he found himself the one abandoned. Anthony entered the expansive yet desolate living room, where his mother was seated, quivering before the flickering screen of the television. She faced him, her eyes glistening with tears. Anthony. Action is required. It is imperative that you reclaim the dignity of our lineage. Yet Anthony merely released a sardonic chuckle. Reclaim our dignity. We have never possessed any honor, mother. With that, he turned and departed, leaving Isabella solitary in the desolate mansion. For he was aware of the reality. The Aldrich family had come to a close long ago. A month later, Lucy received an invitation to one of the most esteemed medical award ceremonies in the Americas. The grand hall was a sight to behold, bustling with a multitude of attendees. As Lucy made her entrance onto the stage, all attention was drawn to her. The host beamed with warmth. "Dr. Lucy Aldrich, is there anything you would like to express?" Lucy gazed across the sea of faces in the audience. She inhaled deeply. Then, she uttered her words. "Once, I was a child left behind." A hush enveloped the hall. Lucy pressed on, her tone steady yet powerful. "There was a time when I was referred to as a curse. I faced rejection, endured hardship, and suffered from deprivation. Yet, I endured. I transcended it. Today, I find myself here not seeking vengeance, but to express a singular thought." She took a brief moment to reflect. In that moment, a smile graced her lips. Genuine beauty resides not in outward appearances, but within the depths of one's heart. Cheers filled the room. The crowd rose to their feet, chanting her name, honoring her as a champion. Yet, in a distant place, those who had once ridiculed her, tormented her, and cast her out, could only lower their heads in embarrassment. Richard Aldrich devoted the closing chapters of his life to solitude. He had lost all respect from those around him. The murmurs surrounding him had shifted from praise to derision. Isabella, once a formidable figure in society, had faded into obscurity. Even those who had once revered her had now abandoned her. And Anthony. He had experienced physical healing. Yet, his spirit would forever carry marks that time could never wash away. Each time he gazed into the mirror, the reflection no longer revealed Anthony Aldrich, the golden heir. He observed a man who had succumbed to defeat. A specter from days gone by. And Lucy. She moved forward without a glance behind her. She had shut the door on her past and ventured into the future she crafted with her own hands. The individuals who had caused her harm had already met their consequences. However, Lucy had lost all interest in them. She emerged victorious. Not by means of vengeance. Yet by evolving into the finest iteration of herself. Lucy, the young one, once scorned, struck, and abandoned, was now the one who radiated the most brilliance. She found no need for revenge, as destiny had already orchestrated her justice. Ultimately, Lucy had discovered genuine liberation. Life is shaped by our choices and not by external circumstances or the opinions of others. It is molded by our unwavering resolve and steadfast commitment. Lucy demonstrated that even when overlooked, even when scorned, one can transcend every challenge, provided they maintain their perseverance. Forgiveness is not a sign of weakness, it is evidence that we have transcended those who have caused us pain. A person's value is fundamentally not determined by their appearance, their history, or the judgments of others. It lies within their strength, their compassion, and their power to forge their own path. You.